A young woman married herself, but a shocking twist made her divorce. Welcome back to Will I Be Happy, where we dive into the wild twists of love, self-discovery, and all the messy moments in between. I'm your narrator, and today's story is one for the books. Meet Joy, a fearless single gal who got tired of waiting for Mr. Right and decided to do the unthinkable. She married herself. But just when she thought she had it all figured out, fate threw her a curveball in the form of her childhood crush. It's a roller coaster of unexpected love, sassy best friends, and a self-marriage ceremony that would make even the boldest blush. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. Would you ever marry yourself? Let's get into it. Joy Singer had always been the life of the party, loud, fearless, and perpetually single in a way that would make even Bridget Jones blush. Her appearance mirrored her bold personality. She had wild, curly auburn hair that refused to be tamed, often pulled back in a messy bun that somehow still looked chic. Joy's style was a mix of vintage finds and daring fashion choices, always paired with her signature red lipstick, a statement as loud as her laugh. At 36, she'd tried it all: blind dates, dating apps, friends setting her up with their great single uncle, and even that disastrous speed dating night that ended with her ex-boyfriend showing up with a new fiancé. Enough was enough. So when Joy announced to her family and friends that she was marrying herself, no one quite knew whether to laugh, cry, or call a therapist. "Y'all, I've decided to say I do. To me. Ain't nobody got time for frogs dressed up as princes," Joy declared, beaming at the stunned faces gathered in her Houston living room. She stood there with the confidence of a Southern belle about to win Miss Texas, champagne flute in hand, and wearing a white dress she'd picked up on clearance. "You're kidding, right?" Ariel Candy Epple, her work bestie, with a flair for the dramatic, sputtered mid-sip, spilling Prosecco all over her designer blouse. Ariel's wardrobe was all about attracting attention, usually paired with a personality just as flashy, with platinum blonde hair that fell in loose waves past her shoulders, often highlighted with streaks of pink or blue depending on her mood. She had a petite frame, just shy of 5'2", but her towering stilettos gave her the height she craved. Her infectious grin and high-energy presence made her unforgettable, even if she sometimes bordered on over the top. She was always Joy's biggest cheerleader, but secretly couldn't help but wonder why she hadn't thought of the self-marriage idea first, complete with a lucrative social media deal. "Nope, I'm done waiting for a Prince Charming who's more frog than royalty," Joy said, a determined glint in her eye. "Besides, who loves me more than I do? No one. That's who. So it's official. I'm going to marry myself, and y'all are going to be there to see it." And they were. The ceremony that spring was a sight to behold, like a Pinterest board on steroids, complete with a cupcake tower, a string quartet that only knew Taylor Swift covers, and a floral arch that could have been plucked from a rom-com. Joy walked down the aisle of her best friend's backyard, the sun shining on her, a bouquet of peonies in hand, and a huge smile plastered across her face. The crowd, friends, family, and a couple of curious neighbors who just wanted free cake, watched with a mix of awe and confusion. Here comes the bride and the bride. A day prior to that, Joy stood proudly before City Clerk Joseph, who looked like he had accidentally wandered into a sitcom instead of a legitimate wedding. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered, adjusting his tie nervously. "You know this is binding, right? Legally speaking." Joy waved him off with a confident grin. "Joe, if people can marry trees, I can marry myself. Now can we get on with this? My feet are killing me in these heels." As City Clerk Joseph cleared his throat, Joy shot him a quick grin. Poor guy looks like he wandered into the wrong reality show. She glanced down at her handwritten vows, the words blurring slightly. "Okay, focus, Joy. This is your big moment. Don't think about how your ex-fiancé used this same minister for his actual wedding to his actual wife. Nope, not going there." "I, Joy Singer, take me, myself, and I," she began, her voice trembling slightly before she found her rhythm. "To love, honor, and cherish through bad hair days, questionable fashion choices, and way too much online shopping. She could hear her cousin snort from the back row. "Oh, shut up, Becky. At least I didn't marry the guy who thought Taco Bell was an aphrodisiac." And so, vows were exchanged, mostly Joy promising to love, honor, and cherish herself through endless spa days. And rings were placed on fingers. Well, just one finger. The guests at the wedding party cheered, clinking glasses and wiping tears of laughter from their eyes. She glanced over at Candy, who was recording the whole thing for Instagram. "If this goes viral, maybe I can make some money out of it. Marry yourself, the ultimate self-care routine." I can see the ad now. As she slipped the ring onto her own finger, she felt a rush of pride mixed with a twinge of absurdity. Who needs a prince when you've got Prosecco and an Amazon Prime account? "You've really done it now, Joy," Candy cackled, snapping a selfie with her. "You're officially off the market. To everyone, including yourself." Her BFF grinned, loving every second of the absurdity. "Damn right. I'm off the market, but I'm on the rise, baby." The party went well into the night, with Joy soaking in every ounce of attention like the sun on a hot Texas day. But as the glow of the twinkling lights dimmed and the guests trickled out, Joy sat on her makeshift throne, a bar stool decked out in tulle and glitter, feeling a pang of something unexpected. Maybe it was the third mimosa or the fact that she was now technically Mrs. Joy Singer. But as she stared at the last piece of wedding cake, she couldn't shake the feeling that something, no, someone, was missing. Little did she know, fate had a surprise in store that would turn her world upside down, sending her self-married life into a spiral she never saw coming. Autumn had arrived in Houston, painting the city in shades of gold and rust, and Joy Singer was wrapped in her favorite oversized sweater, scrolling through social media as if it were a sport. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, her favorite kind, where she could indulge in some guilt-free lounging after another chaotic week at the shipping company. But today, her scrolling came to an abrupt halt when a familiar face popped up on her screen, stopping her thumb mid-scroll. It was Guy Ivory, her childhood friend and secret first crush, whose freckles she used to count during lazy summer afternoons spent playing tag and hide-and-seek. The years had been kind to him. He looked ruggedly handsome, a mix of Chris Evans' charm with just a hint of weariness that only life and a few heartbreaks could carve into someone's features. Guy exuded an effortless charm with his sandy brown hair, with the exception of a few gray ones, often tousled as if he'd just rolled out of bed, and deep-set green eyes that could shift from playful to pensive in an instant. Standing at 6'2", his athletic build spoke of a man who stayed active, though not obsessively so, just enough to maintain those broad shoulders and defined jawline that made him a hit with the ladies. She realized he'd recently gone through a divorce, no kids involved, and the news of his single status seemed to send a jolt straight through her. "Holy crap," Joy muttered, staring at his picture longer than necessary. There he was, standing by a pumpkin patch, his smile slightly forced, but still devastatingly familiar. It was the kind of smile that said, "I'm doing okay," even when the eyes hinted otherwise. She hadn't seen Guy in years, not since he moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma after middle school, leaving Joy with memories of the endless, sun-drenched days they spent together. They'd lost touch, as people often do, but Joy had always wondered what became of him. Who did he grow up to be? And why, out of nowhere, did she suddenly feel that same flutter in her chest that she hadn't felt since she was 12? Before she could overthink it, Joy's fingers were typing out a message, her heart racing with a mix of nostalgia and impulsive bravery. "Hey, stranger, long time no see. I'm not stalking, I promise, but I just saw your post. You still in town?" She hesitated for a moment, thumb hovering over the send button, but then she thought of her spring wedding to herself, how she'd made that bold declaration to love herself no matter what. So why not take another leap, even if it was just to reconnect with an old friend? She hit send, the rush of adrenaline making her giggle nervously. Within minutes, the reply came back, and Joy's heart skipped a beat as she read the words. Joy Singer. No way. I'm in town for now. We should catch up. Coffee? What started as a simple hello quickly blossomed into cozy coffee dates that felt like the reunion of two souls who had never really drifted apart. As Halloween drew closer, Houston was bathed in a festive glow. Pumpkins lined the streets, skeletons dangled from porches, and the crisp air carried the scent of bonfires and spiced lattes. Joy and Guy found themselves meeting at the Sugar Skull Cafe in the Heights, a hipster haven known for its killer pumpkin lattes and cobweb-covered chandeliers, where jack-o'-lanterns flickered like mischievous ghosts in every corner. I still can't wrap my head around it, Guy said, setting his mug down with a thud as they sat in a cozy booth beneath a garland of fake bats and twinkling fairy lights. He looked at Joy, a mix of disbelief and admiration in his eyes. You actually married yourself? A real ceremony? White dress and all? Joy smirked, adjusting her witch's hat headband that she'd worn for the Halloween spirit. Yep, white dress, vows, and one very confused city clerk. I walked myself down the aisle to Beyoncé's All the Single Ladies. She flashed him a playful smile, but there was a hint of pride behind it. Guy's laughter boomed through the cafe, turning a few heads as he shook his head in disbelief. Only you, Joy Singer, could pull off something that wild. Bless your heart, you sure know how to keep things interesting. What did your family even say? I mean, isn't marrying yourself some next level I'm done with men's kind of statement? Joy shrugged, swirling her pumpkin spice latte with a tiny cinnamon stick. They thought I'd lost my mind. My mom kept asking if I'd need a divorce lawyer when I got tired of myself. She snorted, leaning back against the booth, her eyes sparkling. But hey, I threw a killer party. My work friend Ariel filmed the whole thing like it was a reality show, and everyone got drunk on spiked cider. It was actually one of the best nights of my life. Guy leaned in, his eyes narrowing with that boyish mischief that Joy remembered all too well. Seriously, you're a legend. But what were you thinking? Were the dating apps that bad? Joy rolled her eyes, feeling a mix of embarrassment and amusement as she looked at him. You have no idea. One guy tried to pitch me his pyramid scheme during appetizers, and another ghosted me after 5 dates because I didn't want to move to his yurt community. I figured, why not take a break and celebrate myself for once? Guy laughed, but there was something tender in his expression. You know, I wish I'd been there. Would have been fun to watch you steal the show as usual. He paused, his smile softening. But I gotta admit, I'm surprised. The Joy I knew was always chasing the next big thing, the next adventure. Now you're marrying yourself? Joy sighed, the festive atmosphere suddenly feeling a bit too close. She glanced at the spider web-covered windows, the flickering candles that threw ghostly shadows against the walls, and then back at Guy. I think I just got tired of looking for something that never felt right. But this, she gestured between them, this feels good. It feels real. Guy leaned back, his eyes never leaving hers, and for a moment, the playful banter faded, replaced by something heavier and more intimate. Well, I'm glad you did it, but just so you know, I'm here now, and I'm not letting you do something crazy like that again without me at least crashing the wedding. They both laughed, but beneath the Halloween decorations and the playful atmosphere, a new connection was beginning to stir. The season of tricks and treats had brought them together, and Joy couldn't help but feel like this time, fate had something sweet in store. The only question was whether they were both brave enough to see where it led. Joy Singer had spent a few summer months embracing her self-marriage, reveling in solo movie nights, bottomless brunches with herself, and even spa days where she indulged in the me time she'd sworn was better than any date. But in a surprising twist that would have made any rom-com writer proud, Joy found herself realizing that maybe, just maybe, the person she'd been looking for wasn't inside her after all. He was right in front of her, smiling, laughing, and spilling coffee while listening to her crazy stories. That Friday afternoon, Joy sat in her cluttered office at the International Shipping Company, venting to her best friend Candy, who was leaning back in her chair, filing her nails and scrolling Instagram with the finesse of a pro multitasker. "I don't get it," Joy said, tossing her phone onto the desk like it had offended her. "Candy, I thought this whole marrying myself thing would be the end of the relationship drama. But now I'm thinking maybe self-love and, other love can actually exist at the same time. Like, why did I think it had to be one or the other?" Ariel looked up, barely missing a beat as she switched to the next shade of nail polish. "Oh, sugar, you just need some fella telling you you're pretty every once in a while. Keeps the blues away, trust me, it's a mood booster. I've got 3 exes on rotation for that exact reason." Joy laughed, shaking her head. "I'm serious, Candy. I think Guy might be the one." Ariel paused mid-swipe, glancing at Joy with raised eyebrows. "Oh, hell no. You're not falling for Mr. Hunky Divorcee, are you? I mean, I get it. He's like that Evans guy cousin, but isn't that a little, I don't know, ironic?" Joy smirked, looking out the window at the Halloween decorations lining the office. Plastic spiders, fake cobwebs, and a skeleton that had been awkwardly propped against the water cooler. "Yeah, it's ironic, but you know what? I'm okay with it. Turns out self-love doesn't mean I have to be alone forever." Little did they know, Effie Abrahamson, their no-nonsense boss, was hovering by the doorway, pretending to shuffle papers. Effie was known around the office as a tough cookie, half terrifying, half impressive, with a permanent scowl and an addiction to sugar-free Red Bull. But today, she was listening, and for once, she wasn't rolling her eyes. "I'd keep that to yourself," Effie said, startling both women. "Trust me, admitting you found the right man after swearing them off isn't just ironic, it's pure comedy. But hey, I'm happy for you." She gave Joy a wink before stomping off to terrorize the new intern, but not before muttering, "And keep an eye on Ariel, she's a wild card." Meanwhile, over at Guy's apartment, things were getting less philosophical. Guy and his cousin Kai, who could pass as a Calvin Klein model on a good day, were lounging on the couch in their boxers, their attention split between a video game and a box of leftover pizza. Kai was the quintessential pretty boy, with a chiseled physique that looked like it was sculpted for magazine covers, including smooth abs that were the envy of anyone who saw him shirtless. His set of teeth often revealed how mischievous he was. It was a classic boys will be boys scenario, except these boys were both in their 30s, and Kai was mashing buttons on the controller like his life depended on it. Guy's game character was dodging explosions on the screen, but his mind was elsewhere. He sighed, tossing the controller onto the coffee table with a frustrated groan. "Man, I gotta say," Guy started, rubbing his face as he sat back against the couch cushions. "I think I'm falling for Joy." Kai, stretched out beside him with his feet up on the armrest, paused the game and turned his head, surprised but not shocked. Wait. Joy as in Miss I Married Myself? Dude, we're practically naked and you're telling me you're in love? This better not be some weird bromance talk." Guy laughed, tossing a beer can at Kai, who barely dodged it. "Shut up, I'm serious. She's just different. She's got this way of making everything feel lighter. Like, she's loud and dramatic and, yeah, she married herself, but it's kinda badass, you know?" Kai snorted, sitting up and reaching for a slice of pizza, crumbs falling onto his chest hair. "Yeah, she's something all right, but you, man, you've got it bad. I haven't seen you like this since you almost cried watching The Notebook." "What's going on?" Guy groaned, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, every time I'm with her, I feel like I'm back in high school, but better. She's got this laugh that fills a room, and when she looks at me, it's like, I don't know, I feel seen." Kai leaned over, shoving Guy's shoulder playfully. "Gee, you're giving me all the 16 Candles vibes right now. Are you gonna tell her, or are we just gonna sit here in our underwear until you figure your shit out?" Guy shoved him back, grinning. "Man, I don't know. She's this crazy mix of everything I didn't know I needed. I want to tell her, but what if she thinks I'm nuts?" Kai's expression softened as he looked at his cousin, the guy who'd been more like a brother all his life. "Guy, You're a good dude. And if Joy doesn't see that, then she's the crazy one. But you gotta put yourself out there. She's been on her own adventure. Maybe she's ready to let someone else join her." Guy nodded, his smile fading into something more genuine, more vulnerable. "Thanks, man. I needed to hear that. From you." Kai reached over and clapped him on the back, pulling him into a quick half hug. "Hey, you've always got me no matter what happens. But go get your girl. And if you need a wingman, I'll even put on pants." They both burst out laughing, the kind that comes from years of shared secrets and brotherhood, each knowing that no matter what happened with Joy, they had each other's backs. Guy took a deep breath, feeling lighter already. "Yeah, I think I will. And maybe one of these days you can join us on a double date. But first, you've got to find someone who can handle all of this." He gestured at Kai, sprawled out like a carefree king in his underwear. Kai grinned, lifting his beer in a mock toast. "Here's to crazy ideas. Hot chicks and dudes who aren't afraid to love 'em. Now let's finish this game. You're going down." They unpaused the game, the screen lighting up with action once more. But this time, Guy's heart was a little lighter. Because sometimes, all it took was a late-night talk in your underwear to remember that love and life were worth the mess. That weekend, the sun was shining on Houston's City Park, where Joy and Guy met for a spontaneous picnic that looked straight out of a Hallmark card. The Halloween spirit was in full swing. Kids in costumes darted around, and the distant sounds of a pumpkin patch festival filled the air. They sat on a checkered blanket, surrounded by snacks and laughter, the playful tension between them growing with every passing moment. Joy glanced at Guy, her heart racing as she realized the truth that had been sneaking up on her for weeks. She took a deep breath, turning to him with a new brightness in her eyes, one that had nothing to do with self-marriage or ironic vows. "You know, I've been thinking," Joy began, her voice soft but sure. "I always thought the key to happiness was figuring out how to be happy alone. But maybe the real trick is learning to love yourself enough to let someone else in, too." She paused, meeting his gaze. "So, what do you say, Guy? Want to be my partner on this crazy journey? I mean, who else could survive a second wedding with me?" Guy's expression was a mix of surprise and pure delight, his grin widening as he looked at the woman who'd just turned his world upside down. "Are you kidding? I've been waiting since 3rd grade to get back on this roller coaster with you. Count me in, Joy Singer. Every twist, turn, and pumpkin-flavored disaster." They laughed, their hands finding each other's as the Halloween festivities continued around them. Because sometimes, the best relationships aren't the ones you plan. They're the ones that catch you off guard when you're least expecting it, like a ghost story on a sunny afternoon. And for Joy and Guy, this was just the beginning of a journey that promised to be scarier, messier, and a whole lot more fun than any self-marriage could ever be. Joy thought her self-marriage was the most outrageous thing she'd ever do, but fate had a sense of humor. Months after vowing to love herself forever, she found herself entangled with her childhood crush. Tonight, at her company's lavish Halloween bash hosted by their no-nonsense boss, Joy was ready to take on the night in full Statue of Liberty regalia. Her sequined green dress clung to her curves, and she proudly waved a bejeweled torch as if she were starting a revolution. Guy looked effortlessly sexy in his Captain America costume, a hero's look, tight abs, and a chest broader than the Texas Medical Center. His shield rested against a nearby chair as he moved with the confidence of a man who didn't need to try too hard. Joy watched him as they mingled, their shared glances loaded with heat and unspoken tension. Her best friend, Ariel Candy, was slouched at the cocktail bar, nursing a martini and looking like a hot mess in her rock star outfit, smudged eyeliner, a faux leather jacket, and the kind of boots that screamed trouble. "I married myself to find love," Joy announced dramatically, lifting her torch as if giving a TED Talk to the crowd. "But what I found was something even more valuable, a second chance at a childhood love story." She shot a playful look at Guy, who laughed, raising his glass of top-shelf whiskey with a wink. "The universe has a way of throwing you curveballs." Guy said, his voice smooth as he leaned into Joy, his arm casually sliding around her waist. Let's make up for lost time. Kai, Guy's cousin and loyal wingman, strutted around in his toga, golden laurel crown glinting under the chandeliers. To second chances and reckless decisions, he cheered, raising his crystal goblet filled with expensive tequila. And to not marrying ourselves unless it's a way to dodge alimony payments. The company's lavish Halloween party was in full swing, with the lights dimmed low and Madonna's Like a Virgin blasting through the speakers, the perfect anthem for the glamorous chaos. Joy glided through the ballroom in her sparkling green costume, sequins catching the light as she proudly raised her torch, embodying the bold, carefree spirit of the night. Guests moved to the rhythm, dancing, laughing, and clinking their luxury glasses in sync with the song's playful beat. Laughter filled the room, the festive atmosphere buzzing. But Candy's inebriated smirk turned sly as she swirled her vodka martini, her eyes locked on Guy. The lyrics of the song seemed to echo her own reckless thoughts. Tottering toward him, her movements unsteady and bold, she pressed herself against him, her breath hot with the unmistakable scent of booze and bad decisions. Guy, caught off guard by Candy's sudden boldness, tried to play it cool, but her grip tightened as she tried to slip her hand into his waistband. "Candy, stop! This isn't— Damn it, Candy!" He struggled to pry her off without making a scene, cheeks flushing red as she giggled, pawing at him like he was the night's prize. The mix of laughter, music, and drama turned the moment into a twisted game, perfectly set to the beat of Madonna's anthem, where everything felt heightened, reckless, and just a little bit dangerous. Joy was too busy holding court with her Statue of Liberty shtick to notice, but their boss, Effie, had been watching the entire spectacle. Effie, dressed as a fabulously sea witch, complete with shimmering tentacles and an absurdly elaborate crown, leaned against the bar, swirling her martini with an expression of pure amusement. She slithered up beside Joy, her seaweed green gown dragging luxuriously on the floor. "Sweetheart, I love a good romantic plot twist as much as the next girl, but your bestie is 2 seconds away from trying to play capture the flag with Captain America's pants. Might want to rein that in." Joy's eyes darted to the side just in time to see Candy practically hanging off Guy, her drunken cackles echoing through the room. "Oh my God!" Joy groaned, planting her face in her hands. "What the hell is happening tonight?" Effie arched an impeccably penciled brow, raising her glass. "It's like watching an HBO drama, messy, expensive, and a little too steamy for work parties." Everywhere Joy looked, she saw guests caught between amusement and discomfort, some whispering, some watching with a kind of voyeuristic thrill. The room felt like a pressure cooker, every laugh, every clink of glasses amplifying the tension that simmered just below the surface. Joy's vision blurred for a moment as she tried to process the conflicting emotions. A cocktail of pride, anger, and vulnerability. She was supposed to be having fun, but the sight of her best friend throwing herself at the man she was beginning to care about was like a gut punch. The whole party felt surreal, like a scene from one of the movies she loved but never quite believed in for herself. She took a deep breath, her internal monologue kicking into overdrive. "All right, Joy. Time to pull it together. You've survived worse. Like that time you tried to make gluten-free lasagna and almost set the kitchen on fire. You can handle a tipsy Candy and a flustered Guy. Besides, if this all goes to hell, at least I'll have material for my memoir. From self-marriage to third wheel, the Joy Singer story." Mortified, Joy stormed over to Kai, who was flexing shamelessly in his toga, the fabric hanging dangerously low around his hips. She grabbed his arm, pulling him away from his circle of admirers. "Kai, your cousin is about to get stripped like a damn Chippendale by my drunk friend, and I'm 2 seconds away from shoving this torch somewhere that isn't Lady Liberty approved. Remind me again why I thought ditching my self-marriage vows was a great idea for this chaos?" Kai, barely fazed, smirked and took another slow sip of champagne, his eyes lingering on her fiery expression. "Hey, you walked down that aisle alone, sweetheart." Maybe this whole mess is just fate's twisted way of making you work for your Captain America fantasy. He looked her up and down, his tone dripping with flirtation. And from where I'm standing, it looks like you're loving the drama. Guy finally broke free from Candy's wandering hands, shoving her back with a look that was equal parts furious and flustered. He locked eyes with Joy, his voice sharp. Joy, are you seriously letting your friend feel me up like I'm a damn stripper while you're over here playing toga tug-of-war with my cousin? This is not what I signed up for. Joy, her temper boiling over, snapped back, her chest heaving as she closed the distance between them. Oh, don't flatter yourself, Captain. I was supposed to be having some kind of romantic redemption, not standing here watching you get pawed at like some goddamn party favor. Her voice dropped, low and sultry, her frustration barely masking the heat simmering between them. Maybe I should have just stayed all by myself. At least then I'd be the only one caring for me. Guy's eyes darkened and he stepped closer, his voice rough with a mix of anger and something deeper. Oh, trust me, Joy. If you think this is what I want, then you're dead wrong. But seeing you right now, all fired up, makes me wonder why the hell I'm not dragging you out of here and reminding you exactly what you're missing. The air between them was electric, charged with every unspoken word and every unresolved touch. Kai watched them, his smile widening as he sensed the crackling tension. God, you two should just get a room already, he teased, winking. But until then, how about we all just try not to kill each other? Kai clinked his glass against hers, smirking. Two complicated love lives and dressing like idiots. Cheers. The night only grew messier as Candy launched into an impromptu karaoke session, slurring her way through power ballads with all the grace of a tipsy rock star on a downward spiral. Effie, still sipping her drink like it was popcorn, watched from the sidelines, chuckling at the drama. By the end of the evening, the polished ballroom was left with lipstick-stained glasses, discarded costume accessories, and a tangle of emotions that no one knew how to handle. Joy and Guy left in a huff, Candy stumbled into a coat closet, and Kai just kept drinking, toasting to the insanity of it all. It wasn't the fairy tale ending Joy had imagined, but as the night drew to a close, she couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it. Maybe, just maybe, the most memorable moments were the ones where everything fell apart. The first workday after the wild Halloween party was filled with tension and whispers at the International Shipping Company. Word of Candy's drunken antics had spread, and no one could avoid the awkwardness that lingered in the air. Candy sulked at her desk, her head pounding from more than just a hangover. She had made a fool of herself in front of the entire office, including Joy's new man, Guy. The memories of her desperate attempts to grope him came flooding back, and she cringed at the thought of facing everyone. As she approached Joy's desk, her steps were hesitant but determined. She paused, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Joy, we need to talk," she said, her voice laced with a mix of frustration and vulnerability. Joy looked up, sensing the weight behind Candy's words. "Candy, is this really the time? We're at work." Candy sighed, her expression softening. "I know, but I can't keep this inside anymore. The party, what happened with Guy, it wasn't just about him. I've been feeling lost, and seeing you so sure of yourself, it messed with my head. I've been jealous, babe. I hate admitting it, but I have." Joy's initial defensiveness melted away as she saw the pain in Candy's eyes. "Well, it's okay to feel lost. God knows I've been there. Marrying myself wasn't about showing off. It was about trying to find some peace in the chaos." Candy's shoulders slumped, her voice softening as well. "I get that now. I've just been chasing something, anything, to make me feel like I'm worth it. And seeing you with Guy, it just brought up all this stuff I didn't want to face." Joy reached out, giving Candy's arm a gentle squeeze. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much you were hurting, but we can both figure this out. We've all been there, but you need to face your own stuff, Candy. You deserve better than just chasing the next guy who gives you a second glance." As Candy nodded, Joy's words sank in. The confrontation hadn't magically solved their issues, But it was a start, a step toward healing what had been broken between them. Both women were learning that self-discovery was never a straight path, and that sometimes it took a bit of breaking down to start building up again. And for the first time in a long while, Candy felt like she could breathe again. Effie Abrahamson, the ever-stoic boss, had had enough. Candy was called into her office, and the icy silence was almost worse than the scolding that was sure to follow. Effie sat behind her desk, her gaze piercing. "Candy, you really outdid yourself this time," she said, her voice cold as a winter breeze. "I run a business, not a reality show. Your little display at the party? Unacceptable." Candy squirmed in her seat, trying to offer a weak smile. "I got a little carried away. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand." Effie narrowed her eyes. "This is a place of professionalism, not a dating pool. You embarrassed yourself, and more importantly, you made things uncomfortable for everyone involved. I should fire you for this." Candy's face drained of color. "Effie, Don't!" Effie's voice cut through the air like a blade. "I'm not going to fire you. Not yet. But this is your last chance. You've got a week to prove to me that you can handle yourself, or you're out." As Candy left the office, Joy sat in the break room, staring down at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Guy's number, her thoughts still tangled from the party. Effie walked in, her sharp demeanor softening ever so slightly as she approached Joy. Effie placed a hand on the back of Joy's chair, her voice lower than usual. "Listen, Joy, I know what you're thinking. I saw what happened between you and Guy, and Candy. But don't let one drunken mistake stop you from seeing something real." Joy sighed, looking up at her boss. "It's not just Candy. I've spent all this time trying to figure out how to love myself. I don't even know if I'm ready for this." Effie nodded, her expression unreadable. Loving yourself is important, but it doesn't mean shutting everyone else out. Sometimes the best relationships come after you've learned to stand on your own. Joy blinked, taken aback by the rare moment of wisdom from her boss. "You really think I should go for it?" "It's your life," Effie shrugged, taking a sip of her coffee. "But if you're going to walk away from something good just because of one bad night, then maybe you're the problem, not the people around you." Later that afternoon, Joy decided she needed to clear her head. She headed to a nearby cafe to grab some coffee, only to run into Kai, Guy's cousin, who was waiting in line. Kai, dressed in his usual laid-back style, flashed her a grin. "Fancy running into you here? You look like you've got a lot on your mind." Joy raised an eyebrow. "You have no idea." They sat down together with their coffees, and Kai leaned in with a smirk. "So, how's life after self-marriage? Still committed to yourself, or is Captain America winning you over?" Joy rolled her eyes, but smiled despite herself. "You're as annoying as Mr. G sometimes, you know that?" Kai chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment. But seriously, I've never seen him like this. Not even with his ex-wife. He's into you, Joy, and not in the let's just fool around kind of way." Joy hesitated, biting her lip. "I don't know. Maybe I should have just stayed married to myself and give up on boys." Kai leaned back, giving her a knowing look. "You didn't marry yourself to avoid love. You did it to find yourself. Now that you have, maybe it's time to let someone else in." Before Joy could respond, Candy walked into the cafe, her eyes widening when she saw them. She made a beeline for their table, trying to shake off the embarrassment from earlier. "Oh, great. The whole gang's here," she said, forcing a smile. Kai glanced up, clearly intrigued as Joy was leaving. "Candy, right? You look different when you're not, trying to tear someone's clothes off." Candy flushed. "Yeah, well, not my finest moment, but I'm working on it. I screwed up everything last night, and now I've got Joy thinking she's some kind of saint." Kai smirked, raising an eyebrow. "Good to hear. Maybe you can make up for it sometime. I've got a toga that needs a little more company." He chuckled, leaning closer. "Well, if you're looking to blow off some steam, I know a way." After another suggestive wink, Candy, fueled by anger and desperation, leaned in without a second thought. One thing led to another, and soon they found themselves entangled in a reckless, steamy encounter neither of them was prepared to face the consequences of. Days later, she found herself dealing with more than just emotional fallout. Sitting in a sterile clinic, Candy stared at the pamphlet titled, "Understanding and Managing STDs," the words blurring as a sinking feeling settled in her stomach. The diagnosis of an infection was clear, a painful and burning reminder of a night she'd rather forget. Kai, on the other hand, was just as horrified when he got the call from his doctor, hearing the uncomfortable truth about his careless actions. The initial embarrassment quickly turned into a bitter reality check, knowing that a few moments of impulsive pleasure had led to this. A stark reminder that actions had consequences beyond what they imagined. He tried to reach out to Candy, but she shut him down, too angry and ashamed to face him or anyone else. It was a harsh lesson for both of them, leaving them more guarded and reflective than ever before. By the time Joy returned to the office that evening, she had made up her mind. She called Guy, her voice steady and sure. "Meet me tomorrow morning at City Hall. I'm divorcing myself." Guy didn't hesitate. "I'll be there." Standing on the steps of City Hall, Joy and Guy shared a moment of nervous excitement. The crisp autumn air was filled with the faint sounds of bustling traffic and rustling leaves, but all Joy could hear was her racing heartbeat. Guy fiddled with the collar of his shirt, trying to play it cool, but his eyes kept darting to Joy, who looked more like a bundle of nerves than the confident woman who had once vowed to love herself forever. "Feels kind of surreal, doesn't it?" Joy said, glancing sideways at Guy, her voice tinged with both excitement and a hint of anxiety. "I mean, divorcing myself just to jump into something else? Talk about ironic." Guy smirked, brushing a strand of hair from her face in a gesture that felt both tender and electric. "Hey, life's full of plot twists, right? But if you're sure about this, then so am I." They stepped into City Hall together, greeted by the ever-exasperated city clerk Joseph, who looked up from his paperwork with an expression that was somewhere between disbelief and exhaustion. He glanced at Joy, then at Guy, and let out a long, dramatic sigh. "Back again so soon, Miss Singer? Let me guess. You're not filing for a marriage license with yourself again, are you?" Joseph muttered, shuffling the stack of papers with the defeated look of a man who'd seen it all. "What's next? Adopting yourself?" Joy gave him a sheepish smile, trying to keep things light. "Nope, no solo adoption today, Joe. Just a good old-fashioned divorce from myself." Joseph rolled his eyes, scribbling furiously on the forms. "I swear, you people are making me dizzy. Divorcing yourself? Who even does that? You know, most people just buy a new car or get a haircut when they need a change. Don't you want to go platinum instead?" As Joseph stamped the final page, ready to send them on their way, Guy suddenly dropped to one knee, not with a traditional ring, but a bright, sparkling plastic ring pop pulled from his pocket. Joy's eyes widened, and Joseph nearly dropped his pen as the absurdity of the moment unfolded. "You've got to be kidding me," Joseph muttered, massaging his temples as if he were trying to stave off a headache. "A proposal? Now? With a candy ring? What is this? A sitcom?" Guy, unfazed by Joseph's grumbling, grinned up at Joy, the plastic ring pop glowing ridiculously in his hand. "Well, since we're both now officially happily divorced," he said, waving the stamped papers triumphantly, "I figured there's no better time. Joy, you've taught me that loving yourself first is the most badass thing you can do, but I want to be the guy who's there with you through every crazy chapter. So, what do you say? Marry me?" Joy burst into laughter, tears pricking at her eyes as she looked at the candy ring. It was ridiculous, spontaneous, and so perfectly them. She thought back to her self-marriage, standing in front of a bemused crowd, vowing to put herself first, never imagining she'd be here now, ready to take the plunge with someone else. "This is so us," Joy said, her voice thick with emotion as she reached for the ring pop. "Of course I'll marry you. Plastic ring, impulsive timing, and all. Joseph threw his hands up in mock despair, dramatically stamping the last of the paperwork. Great. Now you're engaged right after getting divorced. My office isn't a Vegas chapel, you know. I better not see you two back here for any annulments. Unless you're bringing me a bottle of something strong. Joy and Guy couldn't contain their laughter as they stood up, the absurdity of the proposal sinking in. They kissed, sweet and lingering, as the city clerk watched on, shaking his head in disbelief. "Don't make a habit of this," Joseph grumbled as they walked out, the sound of the door closing behind them. "Next time, do it with some real jewelry. And remember, you crazy kids better not show up here again unless it's for something simple like paying a parking ticket." As they stepped outside, hand in hand, Joy and Guy felt lighter than they had in years. It wasn't the traditional proposal story they'd ever tell, but it was theirs, imperfect, hilarious, and totally unforgettable. They were ready to face whatever wild twists lay ahead, knowing that, together, they'd take on the world one impulsive decision at a time. And there you have it. Joy went from marrying herself to taking the plunge with her childhood crush, proving that love can find you even when you least expect it, especially when you're dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Relationships are messy, unpredictable, and sometimes a little ironic, but that's what makes the journey so worth it. What do you think? Is Joy making the right choice by giving love a second shot? Or should she stick to her self-married vows? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this whirlwind of love, laughter, and drama, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a wild story on Will I Be Happy? Until next time, keep loving yourself, because that's where every good story begins, and stay happy.